Hey, I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in the game Terracotta Army. Which you can see here, my box is a little different, and I wanted to put out a disclaimer, even though I'm not reviewing this game. This game was submitted to Stonemaier Games a while ago, and so I had a session on either Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia with Adam here, the designer. I believe it was Adam. I don't think the other designer, Prezelmaslaw, was there, but I think Adam was there. And we had a good session of the game. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was quite a good fit for Stonemaier Games, but I did enjoy it. I gave some feedback, and that was this nice note on the box that Adam sent me a copy of the game, the final copy of the game, because he said that some of my feedback was helpful. And I wanted to mention that as well because I have three things to mention today, three favorite mechanisms. And I think one of them may have been my suggestion for the game or one of my suggestions during that feedback session, but I really can't remember. So I don't know. So if I'm accidentally complimenting myself here, so be it. That is not my intention. In Terracotta Army, there's this really interesting core action selection system where you're choosing a section on this rotating dial and you're gaining three different benefits, if possible, from inside out. So you're gaining this benefit, then that benefit, and this benefit. There are ways to turn the dial. The dials also automatically turn at certain times in the game, but this was a neat action selection system. That isn't even my favorite mechanism, but I thought that was clever in the game. So I think my favorite mechanism, and I have two others to mention, is dominance versus presence. It's this concept that permeates throughout the game. Let's see if I can find an example of it on the board for, here's an example, for various types of scoring. And it's very consistent throughout the game. Whenever you score something, you are looking at dominance and presence. And what dominance means is if you have the most of something with no ties. And so, for example, there are these goals. It's a 5-round game. There are different goals that are randomly put out here each round. And this first one says, if you have the most of whatever this goal is, you gain 5 points. So if you are dominant in that category of scoring, you gain 5 points. However, if you have presence, you'll gain 2 points. So what presence means is you have at least one of this thing. And so say this thing was looking for like clay. If you have the most clay, you gain 5 points. But if you have at least one clay, you gain 2 points. And it's that second part of it, the presence, that I think is really clever. Because in a lot of games, and in fact, my instinct as a designer even would have been to go with first place, second place, right? You have the most, you have the second most. So players are jockeying for position over that. But I like this idea of dominance and presence more because it leads you to participate at least a little bit in all these things. And this is a game of lots of ebbs and flows. You'll have a lot of something at certain times, and then you'll have a lot less of it. It isn't, for the most part, it is not a game about forward progress where you're making significant progress in one thing, and then you're not really rewarded for that in this system. Rather, it's often an all or nothing system. And I think this presence element really contributes to that because it means that at the right time of the game, the right score, maybe the end of the round for these different levels of scoring for the Terracotta Warriors that you're placing here, that you want to have at least some of it so that you can participate and gain some points for the presence scoring. And yet, dominance is still very lucrative. In fact, the final round scoring here, the final goal here, 13 points for dominance, 6 for presence. If you have at least something, you gain 6 points. And this system goes throughout the game. I really like it. Dominance versus presence. A few other things I wanted to mention real quick are the master system. And this is the one that I feel like I talked about during the playtest session or the submission session. But in the masters, this is one of the rewards that you can get on the dial. And you pay a cost depending on how many apprentices you already have out here. So if it's your first apprentice, you only pay $1, and you put the apprentice on the board, and then and you gain the benefit for it. And then from then on, you gain 2 different benefits. One, whenever you choose that same master, you already have an apprentice there, so you don't have to pay any cost. There's no cost, you just gain the benefit. And each of the masters have income benefits. So at the end of each round, you'll gain a benefit. You'll either gain a coin for these masters, or for these, you don't have to dry up one of your clay tokens. So I really like this system. I like that you are gaining an ongoing benefit. It's one of the areas of progression in the game, one of the few areas of progression in the game where you're gaining this benefit of not having to pay the cost from then on, and you get this income benefit at the end of your turn. The third mechanism that I thought was really clever is the use of binary weapons tokens. I don't have them handy right here, but basically at the beginning of the game, you get 4 weapons tokens, the same 4 weapons. All players get the same 4 weapons. And you put all of them on the side that indicates that you don't currently have that weapon. And at certain times of the game, you will have the opportunity to spend that weapon to gain a benefit, or to gain a weapon and then later on spend it to gain a benefit. And when you gain the weapon, you simply flip it over to the side that doesn't have the X on it, and then you have it until the point that you spend it. I'm mentioning this because it's such a simple, elegant thing that they put in the game, but it was definitely a design choice here. They could have had you collecting weapons tokens, included a bunch of weapons tokens in the game. Whenever you gain a weapon, you gain one and then you spend it. But instead, the designer went with this interesting choice to have it be binary. You either have the weapon or you don't. It's a two-sided token. And I thought that was a really interesting choice, that it wasn't this element of collecting resources. You couldn't hoard, you couldn't collect, you couldn't really plan ahead all that much other than to keep that token active for that moment that you might need it. And it was a good reminder to me that games that have some sort of element where you need to spend something don't always have to be about collecting that thing or amassing it. It can also have this binary element here where you either have it or you don't. It's a double-sided token with each player having the same tokens to flip over on both sides. I don't exactly know, really off the cuff, when it's better to have this versus having the collect weapon system or collect resources system. But I think it's a good mechanism to have in my back pocket, and same to you as a designer. So yeah, those are my favorite mechanisms in Terracotta Army. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you've played this game and have some thoughts about the game, or if any of these mechanisms I've described make you remember any other games that have similar mechanisms. I'd love to hear about them in the comments as well. Thanks.